So guys, in this video we'll be covering everything about JavaScript objects. So let us start with the video. In a nutshell, you can understand that objects are foundation of your JavaScript language and they are present in each and every aspect. So almost everything in JavaScript is an object, like null, undefined, strings, numbers, booleans, and symbols. These are not objects, okay? These are primitive values. Or types. So these are called primitive values or types, and anything that is not a primitive will be an object. Okay, so anything that is not primitive will be an object. That means arrays, functions, objects, constructors, these are all objects. Okay, so functions and arrays are objects too, and you will see that later in the video. So what are objects? Just like any other primitive values, the objects have values too, and they serve the same purpose, representing the information or data. Whenever you create a variable, like you say first name, and you're assigning a value to it, say Alex, and you log the first name to the console, you will immediately see that you're getting a bunch of characters as an output. If we say node objects.js, we are getting a bunch of characters that is representing a string, and that is holding some info in it, which you can use for later retrieval or processing as well. In this case, you can see that the first name variable is representing the first name of a person, in the sense that the strings are primitives too, because they can represent only one type of information. These bunch of characters are represented by a string data type. In this case, a collection of characters or a string. So what happens when we want to represent a person as a whole? Okay, imagine the person to be a single entity that has a number of parameters that are associated with it: the first name, the last name, the age, the date of birth, and the list of friends that that person is associated to. Now if I create 4 variables for each of these datum, 3 persons would require 4 into 3, 12 variable names. Okay, and that will not be good. So the question is that JavaScript doesn't have classes. Even though it has a class keyword, it only has objects for creating the custom types. So we'll be using objects only. Even if we use classes, that's a syntactical sugar over the prototypal concept. Okay, so in essence, the objects, the classes, does not exist in JavaScript. So they're just a wrapper over the prototypal concept. So in JavaScript, an object can be thought of as a distinct entity that can have properties associated with it. So let us define a single entity called person, and that person will have some properties associated with it. You can define first property as first name, then last name, and then let us say we have the date of birth property. I will say 22/10/1996, and then say list of friends: Sean, Alex, and say XYZ. So the properties that define the object's characteristics and behaviors. Okay, now the first name is defining the characteristic of the entity person, that this person has a first name of Pratik, has a last name of Madan, has a last name, has a date of birth of this, has a list of friends: Sean, Alex, and XYZ. So in our person example, an object can have 4 properties describing it: the first name, the last name, the date of birth, and a list of friends. So in ECMA's specification defines object to be logically a collection of properties, and these properties are known as the key value pairs. You must have encountered a concept of associative arrays, maps, and dictionaries in other languages like PHP or Python. So JavaScript objects embody those characteristics only, but they also have a lot more to them, as we shall see. So let us try logging the person to the console. and we say node objects.js. So as you can see, we have the object of the form, first name, last name, DOB and friends. So in the next video we'll discuss how to reference these properties.